You're here because you want to talk about how to make a career transition within the next year. And we're about to talk about the most important thing that everybody is talking about, and that is the skill gap. If you are somebody who's looking to make a career transition, whether it's marketing, software engineering, tech, anything across the board, odds are you've been hearing one specific thing. That one specific thing is jobs are expecting too much. They're not paying enough. They're asking for all these additional skills that we just don't have, right? I get it. I see it all the time. I coach hundreds of students every month, specifically in freelancing, on how to bridge this gap. But most importantly, let's first look at what the Harvard Business Review is seeing from employers. So I'm going to drop over here. And I highlighted some very important things for us to look at. What I want to start off with is a 2019 survey of 3,500 managers found that only 29% of new hires have all the skills required for their current roles, let alone for future ones. The research finds that in key functions such as finance, IT, sales, and positions filled today will require up to 10 new skills within 18 months. And also documents rising uncertainty about what skills will be needed in future and current roles, and the surge in remote work sparks the redesign and automation of many new tasks. So this was from 2021, right? I want to address what took place mid last year to now, meaning this was shot in January of 2024. Wild year. That was in 2021. Do you know what wasn't out in 2021? ChatGPT. Right? What wasn't out is the mass scale usage of AI. Skills are changing incredibly fast. They're changing faster than they ever have been. And as somebody who's entering a new job market, when I say a new job market, you're working in sales, you want to go into IT, right? You want to go into the tech sector. If you're making those career transitions, you have to understand that over the next year, you have to master 3 new skills. That's going to be software engineering, and then most likely understanding other areas like how to work with AI, how to do API calls, all kinds of really fun stuff. Now, the reason why this matters and what we're going to dive into is more data around this and how you, as somebody looking to make a career transition, can leverage this to your advantage. Because what I want to give you, the entire purpose of this channel is this concept of how to be built for war, right? The job market is an absolute war zone. You need to be built for it. The first way to understand how to enter a battle is to first understand what are my surroundings. Who are you competing against? What are the expectations of employers? And how to have a mentality of not that, oh, the employers want all these unreasonable things. How do we understand that? And how do we address it? Because there will be times there's going to be unreasonable expectations. Instead of trying to fight it, let's lean into it. Let's learn how to address it. Let's learn how to take that and use it to our advantage. And I'm going to show you some very specific ways to do that. But before we do it, let's look at what other additional information they have here. I really want to kind of highlight this one last aspect. In a period of steep unemployment, it might seem that companies looking to add workers would be in the driver's seat. But job openings have also been rising in recent months, meaning that competition for top talent remains keen. And in uncertain times, bringing on the right people is more important than ever. My business mentor, the gentleman Patrick David, who wrote this book, Choose Your Enemies Wisely, he specifically said that there's 5 steps to building a business. And this relates to you, right? You might be watching this saying, I don't care about building a business. That's fine. The reason why I'm telling you this is so that you can understand how to work with a CEO like myself or other CEOs who may be completely different. So I want you to understand this in this order. The first part of building a solid business plan is you need to understand yourself, your strengths, weaknesses, all of those things. Number 2, you need to be solid at decision making, right? This isn't really relevant to you guys right now. Number 3, this is where it starts to really become relevant to you. You have to have the right team in place. Right? What follows the right team, the step number 4, is process, right? You have to have processes to give you the ability to scale. But before you can do that, you have to make sure you have the right people on board. So that when we're looking at articles like this, you see that because there's still an increase in demand of jobs, right? Even though the last video we talked about, a lot of people are letting people go, but there still is an increase in job openings for top jobs like this. You need to be mindful that if you are somebody that follows what I'm about to teach you, you can be one of those people that can be considered top talent, right? And what this is based around, we're going to get into it in just a moment. But this is the baseline that really matters here, right? There's a massive skill gap that is taking place. And if you're making a career transition into a completely different field, you need to understand you don't have those skills. And we're about to talk about how you can bridge the gap between where you are now, where you need to go, and how to develop those skills and be part of that top talent. So let's transition over. This one, a new article, this is from 2014. Employers aren't just whining, the skill gap is real. And I'm going to first read this portion. Talent shortage survey. Last year, 35% of 38,000 employers reported difficulties filling jobs due to a lack of available talent. In the US, 39% of employers did. But the idea of a skills gap, as identified in this and other surveys, has been widely criticized. This guy is asked whether these studies are just a sign of employers whining. He said the skill gap is a zombie idea that should have been killed off by evidence, but it's still not there, right? He says it's maybe fictitious. But the reality, guys, this is real, right? Lots of employers looking this. So this is not a problem of schooling, right? The evidence to conclude that the majority of shortages of workers with basic reading and math skills or workers with engineering and technical training, almost everybody has that, right? There are too many workers who maybe have overeducation. But the real problem is a lot of them have issues learning new technologies. Now, consider this for an example. Graphic designers until recently almost all had skills for print design. Then came the internet, and then they had to learn web development. And then they came to mobile, so they all had to learn mobile. So what we're learning here is they're having to change their skills at an incredibly fast rate. So we're seeing the field goal on the skills you're learning today moving further and further and further down the line. And this is actually reflected in how most job postings are being listed. You can see here, some economists argue that there's no shortage of employees with the basic skills in reading, writing, and math, right? And these are the things that you're being required to have when it comes to a bachelor's degree. This is why we're seeing, there's a study that came out of LinkedIn, the amount of jobs that require bachelor degrees is dropping substantially. Why? Because we don't care about that anymore. What we care about is the skills that you're learning. Now, in addition, what we're seeing is that what you're learning today can be potentially obsolete or even in the 3rd to 5th tier of importance behind what you might need in the next 18 months. So you're sitting here and you're watching me and you're hearing, okay, I'm trying to learn this new skill, but are these skills going to be irrelevant in 15, 16 months? Like what's happening here? What am I hearing? This is what you need to understand. The first and foremost, most important thing you need to understand is when you're learning the new skill, let's say it's web development, right? If you're learning JavaScript, is a great foundation because after you become really good at JavaScript for both front end and back end functionality, you're going to be able to pick up other languages like C, C++, Python, all those things a lot easier because you have a better understanding of what software engineering is in and of itself, right? So the goal here is while you're going through all these transitions, everybody you're going to be competing against are going to be people doing online courses. The problem is when you're going through learning online courses and people are learning on their own, you're competing against people who never gained real world experience, which transitions really well over to this article that talks about using simulations. Now, despite the massive industry-wide investment, one study determined that 75% of senior managers at organizations were dissatisfied with their learning and development initiatives. Essentially, they're trying to train entry-level employees and it just wasn't working. Now, Gartner reports that 70% of employees feel like they lack the skills required to do their jobs. Now, these are 3 systematic reasons for this paradox. Number 1, most people were used to learning in a classroom scenario, not on the job. Number 2, a failure to recognize the importance of peer learning and modeling behavior. Most adults learn best by watching how their peers perform tasks. And number 3, a lack of ongoing feedback, right? Most managers are not giving them feedback. We're seeing that here again from Harvard Business Review. Now, what's really interesting is for you to gain the professional skills to really stand out in the interview process, and again, what we learned here, right? How do you become that top talent for entry-level jobs? How do you become those guys? Because they're never going to struggle to get jobs. How do you do that? Well, number 1, you become great at decision-making and collaborating. And number 2, you get and become great at managing change, right? You're going to be told to do one thing one day, and they may completely change the project 2 months later and say, hey, actually, we need to do this now. I know as a CEO, I'm doing this frequently within our organization, potentially every 1 to 2 months. Because guess what? We're a small to medium-sized business, right? We've done about $15 million in revenue to date. We're not backed by a bunch of investors, right? We're having to bootstrap this entire thing. And if we feel like we need to make a change, we have to make that change fast. And guess what? The vast majority of you watching this video, you're going to go work for small to medium-sized business owners, CEOs, just like myself, right? Managers, just like the managers that I have here. And one of the things that matters the absolute most is knowing that we could change things. You have the ability to adapt. You have the ability to learn new skills because maybe one day we need a new form of internal tool that requires a different language and you have to go get that, right? Maybe one day for our marketing team, we decide, hey, listen, we want to launch a webinar. You have to go learn how to do that. Can we rely on you to do that? Do you have a background to show that you have the ability to learn new skills at a very fast rate? Most people don't know how to do that, which leads to this last point real quickly. Now, this is talking about how you need a skills-based approach to hiring and developing talent, not focusing on education. Now, we're going to briefly cover these aspects. The economic toll of the 2019 pandemic is expected to leave more than 140 million people out of work and another 1.6 million at risk of income loss, right? And what we're seeing here is that the economy is shifting to skills-focused approach is more and more important rather than education, right? Workers often don't realize, by the way, this is something we teach, and this is called interest alignment. And this is something that we coach on our back end portion. And it's that a lot of you are coming from careers where you feel like, I've been a teacher. How does this tie in whatsoever with becoming a software engineer? We have a student that came to us who was a teacher making maybe $50,000 to maybe $45,000 a year because teachers aren't paid a lot, and is now working, I believe it's either Intuit or one of those programs, is making around $150,000 a year. And he was initially thinking, how am I supposed to make this transition? And we had to teach him, hey, listen, right? What you're doing right now is actually perfect for the environment you're going into because you're having to collaborate with people, you're having to work with parents, kids, everything across the board. You are remarkable collaborating and working on project management. You just need the hard skills. This is actually going to be a much easier transition for you. And in addition, you understand the importance of really good structure to help make sure that everybody's able to work on something together. Now, scrolling down, there's something I really want to talk to all of you about, right? And this is from a survey that was done a while back. LinkedIn has seen a 21% increase in job postings, advertising skills and responsibilities instead of qualifications requirements in the US. Look at this. This has dropped to where a degree or requirements for a degree increased by nearly 40% in 2020 compared to 2019. So what you're seeing here for the first time and how this really matters, if you were somebody wanting to make a career transition, you don't need a degree, right? You don't need to have tons of formal experience. What you need is, number one, a great mentor. You need a solid curriculum. You need a great mentor, and you need to be able to go out and find freelance work. We talked about this in the last video. We talked about this in our 5-step roadmap. Number one, you need to master your self skills, which means self-confidence, self-management. Number two, you need to explore your craft. You need to develop all the initial skills. You need to have a massive curiosity for that craft. Number three, you have to differentiate yourself through experience. I'm actually about to show you how you can gain experience. And just like in the first article, how you could stand out and be top talent for entry-level jobs. Number four, after you've developed that experience, you've played around with your craft and you've mastered your self-management skills and you have your self-confidence, you're gonna be able to unlock your value, right? That's when you're pretty good at your craft now. You could develop stuff, you could build stuff, you can produce content, you can do all of those things. And after you've unlocked your value, you can finally create demand, right? You will have employers wanting to work for you, work with you. They will actually reach out to you on LinkedIn, right? It's the wild experience, but most people don't get past the third phase. And that third phase is understanding how to differentiate yourself through experience. Now, this is what we're teaching all of our students here, and I want all of you to pay very close attention. This is a very simple process to get started, right? So an example of this is, I'm going to go into Upwork. I'm just going to type in homepage, something very simple, very, very simple here. Let's look at the projects that are here. I'm going to give all of you a free piece of advice when going to use freelance work. So we had a student land about $700 worth of freelance projects last week using this exact same process. We're going to come up here. We're going to come down to numbers of proposals. We're going to make it to less than 20, right? So less than 5 all the way to less than 20. We're going to make sure that their payment is verified. We're only going to do US only. Now, it's going to narrow this a ton, and after we shift through and find our first handful of projects, we'll then peel it back. We'll peel the onion back a little bit more. But what most matters is the first handful of proposals we put out, we're going to make them hyper-focused. So this is a solid project for anybody to be able to step into. They're giving you all the assets. All you got to do is go optimize it for mobile, right? These are pretty easy projects. $500 fixed price. This isn't too crazy. So what our students are going to step in to do right now, and he has a lot of works in project. He's hired a lot of people. So this is what's going to happen. Finding the projects like this is really what matters at the end of the day. Learning how to market yourself, learning how to sell yourself, learning how to communicate with this client. These are all things that help you stand out in the interview process. And the reason why everybody you're competing against is getting turned down, right? The reason why the vast majority of employers just deny the vast majority of applications is because the people who are applying have the exact same GitHub repositories. They all have the same content. Everybody's followed the exact same YouTube tutorials to build their Netflix clones. No one is doing novel stuff. No one is showing experience. See, this is the one rule that we teach all of our students. No one wants to be the first person to invest in you. And the best way to think about this just holistically, you go back to the early 2000s and you look at Tesla and you look at SpaceX. No one wanted to invest in those companies initially, right? Everybody thought it was crazy for Elon Musk to start SpaceX. All of his friends put together an intervention to tell him, you are crazy, you're going to lose all of your money. Do not do this. Everybody told him, do not do this. When you look at Tesla, everybody told him, do not do this initially. Everybody told him, stop what you're doing. This is not worth it. Fast forward now, for knowing what we know about the companies, would we be willing to give him all of our money back then? Absolutely we would, right? But no one knew the outcome of it. So this is the best way to evaluate yourself. When you're first getting started, you have to know what you're willing to do and what's inside you and the drive that you have, right? Employers won't care about that. The only thing they're going to care about, though, is your first handful of freelance projects. So when you're selling yourself on these first handful of freelance projects, I'm going to give you a couple tips. First and foremost, you want to express to them that your goal is to take all the technical burden off their plate. You will help them build all the automation tools. You will take care of all the technical problems. You're going to be their technical partner. This is something I teach every single one of the students. And the purpose of that is to show them that you are a business owner. You are an entrepreneur. You have so much on your plate already. You need this technical bullshit off your plate, and for someone like me to really specialize in taking that off. So anytime you want to have a change in landing pages, anytime you want to do A/B split tests on the homepage, anytime you want to have automation on upsells, downsells, anything along those lines, I can help implement those in. Now here's the game that really matters for y'all. A lot of y'all won't know what upsells, downsells, any of those things mean. For most of you, again, you're going to go work at small to medium-sized companies. It's important you get an understanding of this, right? Some of you may go work for the small HVAC company, right? Which means you're going to help be building the website. You're going to be helping with optimizations where they get more links, more bookings, all of these things. So to take a big step back, if you want to stand out in 2024 and onwards and get that dream job, make your career transition where you have a job that has a better lifestyle, you're getting paid what you're worth, all those aspects, you need to learn the 5 core steps again. Specifically number 3, how to differentiate yourself through experience. The only way to do that is through freelance work. Pay very close attention. I'm going to be releasing so many videos so often now talking about this. And if you want to stay in tune with it, right, do not forget subscribe. I'm going to be giving everything away, free game. I don't need to make money off these videos. I make my money from mentoring people. So I'm not going to gatekeep the content. I'm just going to give it away free for you for here. And if you want to learn how to get mentored directly by me and my staff, feel free just to reach out. Thank you so much for watching. Again, my name is Nathan Savage, CEO of Devslopes. Can't wait to continue teaching you guys. And if you have any questions, let us know. I'll see you on the next video.